All right, welcome to another deep dive. So, you folks have sent us a ton of excerpts, and they're all from this like serialized story, post-apocalyptic, called 2035, The Appalachian Guerrilla. And basically, you want us to help you figure it all out, right? It's kind of like, imagine a world, but it's built like piece by piece, chapter by chapter, except, it's not a book. It's like blog posts and online forums, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it is. It really is. You know what it's like. It's like a digital jigsaw puzzle, right?
Yep.
You're just trying to put all the pieces together.
Exactly. And we're gonna put it together, right? I mean, we're gonna explore the world, the characters, all those kind of like thought-provoking themes that that sort of emerge from these fragments.
It's really interesting because this format, the serialized fiction that's released online, it's so much more than just like telling a story. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like the author, they're cultivating a community around their work. It's a way to like directly connect with the readers, in this dynamic way.
Yeah.
It's almost like a modern day oral tradition in a way, where the story evolves with input and reactions from the audience.
I like that. That's a good point. So we're basically diving into this digital campfire story, right?
Yeah.
And it's set in 2035 in the Appalachian region, right?
Right.
And it's after a complete societal collapse. So we're just seeing these glimpses of this world with like, limited technology, and where bartering is like, the main way that people exchange goods, and like danger is just like everywhere, lurking around every corner.
And speaking of danger, a key element of that, is this constant threat, looming over everything. It's the presence of the bugmen.
Yeah, the bugmen.
And the excerpts describe them in really vivid detail, with this mixture of fear and hostility. Right?
Yeah.
They seem to be like mutated humans, and they're viewed as these monstrous outcasts,
right,
by those who are living in relative safety,
right,
inside the pods.
The pods, yeah. So I mean, the pods and the bugmen, they raise so many questions.
Oh, yeah.
Like, are these pods, are they havens of technology and safety?
Right.
Or are they something more, controlled?
Yeah.
And then what happened, to create these bugmen?
Yeah, right. Like, how did they come to be?
Was it a virus? Was it some catastrophic event? Or something else entirely? We don't know.
It's fascinating because the story never actually explicitly states the origin of the bugmen.
Huh.
It's almost as if the characters themselves have just accepted their existence, as like a fact of this new world. It's just this like terrifying force of nature that they have to just contend with.
Yeah. It's like, it just is. It's just there.
It just is.
And then we have Tom.
Yeah, our main man.
Our protagonist. And he exists outside of the pods.
Right.
He's out there, and he just seems perfectly capable of navigating this really dangerous world.
Yeah, he seems to be like thriving in this environment, right? He's resourceful. He's a skilled mechanic. He can fix like almost anything.
Oh yeah.
But let's just say he's not afraid to get his hands dirty.
Yeah, he's not afraid to get a little rough.
A little rough, yeah.
Yeah.
He embodies a very, very pragmatic, almost ruthless approach to survival.
Right.
He's definitely a strong leader.
Yeah.
Someone who attracts followers. But he demands absolute loyalty.
Yeah, there's no questioning Tom.
No. And he's not afraid to use force.
Right.
To maintain control.
Yeah. And we see that in his relationship with George.
Oh, right.
Who starts as a reluctant leader.
Right. He doesn't really want the job.
Yeah, doesn't want it. But Tom, he skillfully manipulates him, like almost nudging him towards a more prominent role.
Right.
Which, unfortunately for George, doesn't end well.
Doesn't end well at all. It makes you think, like about the dynamics of power in this world where it's just stripped bare of all societal norms.
Right.
Does Tom's manipulation, does it reflect like a necessity for survival?
Yeah.
In this crazy environment?
Or is there something darker there? Is this some aspect of his personality, that's kind of taking over?
Yeah, it's a good question.
And speaking of personality, Tom's personal life, man, oh man, it is as complex as the world he inhabits.
It is.
So we have his wife, Anne.
Right.
And she's clearly attracted to his strength and leadership. But, we also see these hints of fear
Right.
Like there's this like tension in their relationship.
There is.
That suggests maybe she's both drawn to and wary of his power.
You know, it reminds me of like historical figures, you know.
Oh, okay.
Like leaders who rise to power during these times of crisis.
Yeah.
Often, you know, their strength and decisiveness were attractive.
Right.
To people who were just like seeking stability.
Right.
Even if those same qualities, you know, they masked a darker side.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And then we have Tom's relationship with his son.
Right. D.
He's training him, you know, to survive in this really harsh world. He's teaching him the skills he's going to need.
Right.
But there are these moments, you know, these little moments where we see G kind of questioning his father's methods.
Oh, yeah.
Almost like he recognizes the brutality beneath the survival tactics.
He's like wrestling with that.
Yeah.
You know, it's a classic coming of age story.
Yeah.
But it's set against this extraordinary backdrop, right?
Right.
We see G, he's grappling with his father's legacy.
Right.
You know, the way of expectation and his own like developing moral compass.
Right.
In this world where the lines of right and wrong are just like totally.
Yeah, what up, and welcome back to Pnoid News. Man, listen, so yeah, we got a show for y'all tonight. You know what I'm saying? I got a lot of stuff on here. You know what I'm saying? We probably got like a couple of hours worth of shit that we're gonna cover. You know what I mean? So I think we're going to start with like fucking Serbia. Right. All right. So, like, for those of y'all who don't know, like, where Serbia is, you know what I'm saying? Like, it'll just put everybody in the understanding of where we're talking about, right? You have Serbia here, right, which is in southeastern fucking Europe, right? Surrounded by Macedonia, Kosovo, Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro, Albania, and Greece, right? So this little landlocked country is rather important, right, for the whole of like society and shit, right?
This is sent by a guy, one of my mods, Freejam. He's Serbian. He was at the protest today. The police used a sound cannon while people were paying tribute to the killed. A sound cannon is a dangerous weapon that can cause permanent damage to human health. It is used in extreme cases in some countries and even banned. It's like, that's the kind of shit that's just like antagonistic. Literally no justification for it. Why would you do that? I'm gonna tell you right now that
I mean, like, you do these things because, like, you do these things, right? This is what police do, right? You don't have a lot of tactics when you're a cop and dealing with rioters, and especially when you're talking about, like, you know, somewhere between 100,000 and 800,000 people, because the protesters said there's 800,000, right? You know, I mean, the government says there's 100,000. So it's somewhere in the middle there, right? I have no idea where the number really is, but, like, you know, it is what it is.
I don't know fucking shit about Serbia. I don't even know where it is on a map. But y'all want me to look at it and just, you know, pay respect to it? I'll do that. So what's all this shit about? What are they mad for? It's a train incident?
Okay, so, like, I just wanted to show y'all the scope and scale of exactly what the fuck's going on, right? At the moment, the scale of this, right? All right, so why is this happening? I mean, where do you want to start? Like, listen, this country's fucking history is insane, right? But really, in the end of the day, it starts with one guy named fucking Milosevic, right? Hang on, there we go, Slobodan Milosevic, right? He was a Yugoslavian Serbian politician, president of Serbia between 1989 and 1997. All right, so let's take you back to the 1980s in Serbia, right? 1980s in Serbia. Serbia was owned by the Soviet Union, right? And it was part of the Soviet bloc, and so like therefore it was communist back then and socialist, whatever the case is at that point, right? This Milosevic, right, became president right before the fall of the USSR and remained president into the 1990s. You'll see this a lot in Eastern Europe, right? Putin's another example of this. He came into like 2000, which, is like post, fucking, goddamn it, I can't remember either one of their names. The one starts with a Y, the other one starts with a G, I think. But either way, right? Basically, both of these presidents kind of ran shit into the ground. Putin brought it back up. Kind of kicked some U.S. people out, like a lot of people, put like local politicians and local fucking people into places. And of course, they became oligarchs in the end of the day and mafia people, right? And the same thing happened in this country, right? Now, because he did this shit, and because like he like helped the ethnic fucking Serbians against the ethnic fucking Bosnians and the ethnic, man, listen, hang on a minute, fucking shit, sitting here looking at all this shit, Croats, Bosniaks, Albanians, right? And he, was trying to form kind of like an ethno state in the end of the day. He ended up like fucking getting arrested by the International Criminal Court, right, the ICC. And he died in jail there, right, in 2006, while he was waiting for his trial to conclude. So, that's where it is, right? Now, because of the fact that the U.S. came in and bombed the shit out of the Serbs at that point, the Serbs really don't like the United States, right? Just as a whole, they fucking hate the U.S. And the government in Serbia at the moment, is pro-U.S. Like, literally, they met with, like, Donald Trump Jr. twice in the past, like, couple of months. At current, right, the reasons why they're protesting is because in November, there was a train station that collapsed and killed 15 people, right? Now, as you can see from this picture, like, look at the people up front, right? These... like, look at the broad in the middle in particular. What does she look like? She looks like a bureaucrat. Oh, by the way, Milosevic kicked out a whole bunch of bureaucrats. It was anti-bureaucratic. Yeah, fucking, as you can imagine, the United States didn't like that much. You know what I mean? And immediately started bombing them, right? Okay, so this is all known as the Balkans, by the way. Right? Okay, so basically, a bridge collapsed, a train station collapsed, killed 15 people. And this has been used as a rallying cry to, kick out the fucking President Vučić, right? I'll read you part of this. A student-led protest movement in Serbia rallied more than 100,000 people for a huge peaceful street demonstration Saturday on Serbia's capital, Belgrade, defying warnings from the country's embattled strongman leader and months of unrest. It's a populist leader, not a fucking strongman. He's a populist leader who's been in fucking power for about 12 years. Saturday's rally, the biggest outpouring of public. Oh, by the way, Milosevic, after he was arrested by the ICC court, still remained the third most popular politician in the fucking country. Let's keep this where this is, okay? Saturday's rally, the biggest outpouring of public discontent in Serbia in decades, was preceded by a drumbeat of warnings from President Aleksandar Vučić and his expansive media apparatus that protesters were planning a violent attack to provoke civil war. Opposition politicians added to a foreboding mood, claiming that they received information from inside Serbia's security service of secret plans to arrest Mr. Vuvic's political rivals. But Saturday's rally, which began outside the Parliament building in Belgrade and soon engulfed the city center, passed without major incidents. Supporters of President Vučić gathered in the park near Parliament and threw stones at students, but fears that the government would deploy war veterans and soccer hooligans linked to organized crime gangs to beat protesters as it has in the past did not materialize. Right, so... this is all pageantry and mimicry. Like, you see how good, like, these pictures are, how they're all, like, set up in a proper manner and shit? You know what I mean? Like, everything facing the right way, and everybody's up on top of this, and, you know what I mean? Like, they have, like, all this shit, you know what I mean? Like, perfect. Again, the reason is because, like, all this shit's staged, right? You know what I mean? These are professionally done things, right? In the end of the day. So, I wanted to bring that up, right? So, on top of that, I just wanted to like break down exactly what was going on in Serbia, right? And I mean, basically, U.S. Russia proxy battles in the Balkans. This is nothing new. Protesters upset. Fucking subway collapsed. They want to end corruption. You know, even if they get that shit done, right at the end of the day, even if they like fix some things, like they're still gonna fucking protest because that's what people do because they're fucking dumb. We're gonna get into that. Actually, let's do that before we cover the fucking tornadoes. So, this is
destabilization.
This is a video, right, of which one do I want to do first? Let's do this one here first. Right, this is from Middle Nation. I forget what this guy's fucking name is. You know what I mean? But this is actually a white dude, right? He's German and Irish, who's living in Saudi Arabia or something like that, or Bahrain. And this guy is a Muslim who basically has practiced being Malcolm X a lot. But he says some of the most based shit I have ever heard. Actually, we're going to go with this one first. He says some of the most base shit I have ever heard in my entire life in this fucking video. Both of these videos. Let's keep this a bone. All right, so let's listen to this.
You know, of all the people in the world, the poor and the oppressed can least afford to be emotional or ideological, but they tend to be the most emotional and the most ideological. And I think this is probably symptomatic of feeling powerless, in my opinion. And I think at least partially this feeling of powerlessness stems from ignorance about the systems of power that oppress them. They don't understand how the system works. It's opaque, it's confusing, you know, it's complicated, and seemingly impossible to actually dissect or dismantle. So people fall into this simplistic emotional responses, ideological responses. But the truth is that of all the people in the world, the poor and the oppressed most need objectivity. They most need critical thinking, strategic thinking, realism, and so on. So, for example, everyone likes to say that they're ready to die, you know, for this or that cause. You know, the price of freedom is death, and so on. All of these very dramatic statements. I'm willing to sacrifice.
Yo, listen, I came up with like a new ideology for this, right? And basically, the mental is that freedom is a luxury of those who have full bellies, right? Like, let's keep this a whole way of being, right? You know what I mean? Like, freedom is literally like the luxury of, you know what I mean, fucking the fucking people who actually have food in their fucking stomach, right? It's a complete and utter nonsense thing. You know what I mean? Like, let's be honest about that. You know what I mean? As we go through this, let's keep going though.
Sacrifice my life for freedom, sacrifice my life for justice, or what have you, for Palestine, whatever the case may be. Okay, great, fantastic. You're a brave man. I got it. Well, first of all, your willingness to die is completely matched with the power structure's willingness to kill you. So you're in agreement with power. You're in agreement with the power structure about that. Your life can be snuffed out. You feel that way and they feel that way. But secondly, I'm not sure that your death is actually the missing ingredient for the collective liberation of the oppressed. You know, I don't think that you being alive is the thing that has been holding us back from success all this time. And that therefore, you know, getting you out of the picture is going to solve our problems. You getting killed by the power structure isn't the missing piece of the puzzle. I don't really need to know that you're willing to die. What we need to know is whether or not your commitment is great enough, actually, for you to be willing to do long-term work. Tedious, frustrating, exasperating, disappointing, anticlimactic, boring work over the course of decades.
Yeah, that is some super duper based ass fucking shit, bro. Like, yo, that is more based than, like, I think, like, most motherfuckers even realize, right? Because in the end of the day, like, being a fucking activist, being somebody who, like, wants to affect change on, like, a large scale, right, is not an easy thing, right? Like, it's something that you have to stand here and, like, put fucking work into. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to be willing to stand here and deal with, and I mean, getting knocked in the head and doing paperwork and doing research and like putting things together. It cannot be, you know what I mean? Like, you thinking you're just going to change things right now and right then, right? It has to be something where like you have a long-term goal plan thing, right? And you're willing to sit here and build yourself and build your platform and build community and build like fucking, access and build relationships and do all this shit that's required to be able to like make that fucking change. That shit is fucking crazy.
To achieve actual incremental gradual progress, because that's what we really need. And very, very few people are willing to do that. That's the reality. So, okay, you're willing to die, in a big dramatic fashion, but I'm afraid that doesn't really help us. I mean, imagine it like we're talking about a business endeavor. You're interviewing potential new hires and someone tells you that they're ready to die for the company. Okay, how is that useful? What am I supposed to do with that? See, I'm not really trying to be funny, but I think you're misunderstanding the role that it plays in a movement to be willing to die for that movement. It's supposed to mean that you're willing to do the hard day-to-day work of organizing, researching, educating, persisting in support of your goals. Even if as a result of that work, maybe you get taken out, which ideally you won't be taken out. I mean, more useful than saying that you're willing to die for this or that cause is to say that you're willing to volunteer hours of your time. Are you willing to spend from your own money in support of a cause? Are you willing to be publicly maligned and slandered and to have people hate you and to tell lies about you? Are you willing to be uncomfortable?
Fucking based. Like, real shit. Fucking based. Like that is the most base shit ever. Because that's actually what it takes. Like, you want to stand here and be an activist. You want to sit here and make change. Are you willing to put the time in? Are you willing to put the work in? Are you willing to put in the ground game? Are you willing to read? Are you willing to sit here and, be hated by fucking people? Right? Are you willing to stand here and repeat the same phrase over and over and over and over again? Right? Like, are you willing to stay on message? Are you willing to become good? Are you willing to put that work in to get where you need to be? Not just to like affect change, right? To make yourself capable of even like fucking beginning to fight for that fucking change. Let's keep it a buck.
Are you willing to repeat the same things, the same messages over and over and over again until your brain goes numb? Are you willing to be completely ignored? And like I said, are you willing to put in months, if not years upon years of work without seeing any massive, meaningful changes? Are you willing to take one step forward and be pushed 50 steps back? Because these are all the things that are going to make you much more valuable to any movement than your supposed willingness to take a bullet. The truth is that bullet probably will never come, because the only people who get those bullets are actually the ones who are willing to do all of these other things that I mentioned, who are actually doing them. So, I mean, when you declare your willingness to die, it makes me wonder if you should just get help, because you might actually just be suicidal. I mean, look, sure, okay, maybe working against systems of injustice might get you killed at some point, maybe. But this is understood going in. It doesn't need a lot of talk about it, it's just understood. This is the minimum, not the maximum requirement. Like, we assume that you're ready for that from the outstart. But some of you talk like getting killed for your cause is the actual goal, which is messed up. There's a lot of strange notions, actually, that sort of confuse people when it comes to activism or opposition or resistance or what have you, in my opinion. A lot of confusion about this. I don't see the point of all the melodrama. It's self-aggrandizing, in my opinion, in a way. And it reflects an overall lack of realism or practicality when it comes to serious efforts. I mean, there are several preliminary stages that you should actually go through before you make the decision to get involved in any sort of activity.
Yo, real shit. like half of like motherfuckers who are trying to be activists and want to stand here and, you know what I mean, like put work in, or like fucking stand here and make change. They want to like fix something, right? Like literally, like they're just fucking LARPing, right? In the end of the day, they just want to be that guy, you know what I mean, who like dies for this fucking cause. It's stupid. Like it really is. It's fucking dumb.
Activism or opposition or whatever the case may be, protest and so on. You know, there are stages of, say, self-reflection, self-examination. Like, why do you feel driven to protest, to become an activist, to be in opposition? What's motivating you? And you have to be honest about that. You have to be objective about that. You have to be real about that. Is it pure emotion that's driving you? Is it guilt? Is it reasons of related to your own self-image? Or is it just boredom? Is it avoidance of some sort of personal issues in your life? All of these things need to be questioned because they're all bad reasons. And there are very often major factors, actually, that spur people to become involved in protests and resistance movements and what have you. And then you have to honestly evaluate to what extent is this or that issue that you're concerned about, to what extent is it any of your business? By that I mean, is it an issue of
Based. Fucking based. Like, look at so many people fighting for some shit that don't fucking affect them. Keep it 100. Oh my God, that's based.
over which you have some authority? Is it an issue which you have the capability to have an impact? Do you even fully understand the issue? Are you educated about the issue? Or are you just reacting without understanding the issue because it struck you emotionally? Is this an issue about which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to question you? Question whether you did anything about it or not. Because you understand that you're not going to be questioned about any issue that's not under your authority or any issue that is beyond your capacity to do something about it. You're not going to be questioned about that. You're not held accountable for that. See, I think that the very high level of popular politicization is a new phenomenon in the world, and it's very Western. This idea that everyone is supposed to have a say in everything that happens everywhere. You know, historically, especially in the Muslim world, and in most traditional societies, most people understood that governance was the business of the government and not.
Yo, listen. Yo, this is some of the most based shit I've ever heard in my entire fucking life. Like, yo, think about that fucking statement right there for a minute. Hey, yo, bro, like, why do you even have to tell a motherfucker this shit, bro? Like, you shouldn't have to tell nobody this, but like, real shit. Yo, listen.
Everywhere. You know, historically, especially in the Muslim world, and in most traditional societies, most people understood that governance was the business of the government and not the general public. But this so-called democratic notion infected a lot of people with the idea that governance is actually the business of the citizenry, no matter how ignorant they may be, no matter how emotional or unqualified or uninformed they may be. They're still supposed to have a say. And then you have people on one side of the world thinking that they're supposed to have a say in what happens on the other side of the world, because everyone's supposed to have a say about everything. And it all just gets ridiculous at that point. Like, you can be concerned about what your government is doing on the other side of the world, sure, because that's your government, you know, or what your companies are doing on the other side of the world. You can be concerned about that because those are your companies, meaning they are from your country. They're your country's companies. But what the government of this or that country is doing with regards to their own people, that's not within your purview. That's none of your business.
Listen, everything he says right now is just based. There's some times where, like, he just says nonsense, right? Where, like, he's really started getting into, like, digging into, like, fucking the U.S. and the West and all this type of shit, right? But, like, everything he's saying right now is just complete truths. Like, 100% based. Everything he's fucking saying.
Okay, even with regards to your own government, or say your own power structure, which includes the private sector power within your country. Again, you have to make this assessment. Why are you involving yourself? Should you involve yourself? Are you qualified to become involved? Are you informed enough? And do you have the capacity to influence the situation in any way? You have to examine all of this, in my opinion, before you ever make a decision to become an activist or to become involved, you know? even when it regards your own society. And say that you determine that you want to involve yourself for the right reasons. You know, you've made an assessment, you are educated about the issue that you're concerned with, you are informed, and so on. But your assessment also determines that you have a very limited capacity to actually change anything. Well, then, of course, what you're supposed to do is try to build your capacity. Because if your concerns surpass your capacity, first of all, you're not going to be asked about it by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's enough for you in that case to just oppose the justice in your heart. Because realistically, you don't have the power to change it with your actions or with your speech. And secondly, if this is the case, your actions and your speech will be futile at best, even if you become active. And at worst, they'll be detrimental. So you need to build your capacity to where you can realistically be effective in some way. Otherwise, you're not only not helping, you're probably hurting the situation. Okay, so then, when you have decided that you want to be an activist, or you want to be involved in some sort of movement for social change, or whatever the case may be, well, then you have to determine precisely what course of action is going to be useful. Which means that then you have to examine, and you have to analyze, and you have to map out the power dynamics, the power structure in your society. Because if you've decided to be an activist, it doesn't mean that you automatically go out and protest in the street, or start calling for revolution, or marching, or what have you. You don't automatically do that. You can't just jump to that. I mean, you don't know, actually, if any of these things.
What up, Enclave? Bro, listen, like, yo, this dude just, like, yo, he's just dropping bombs, like, all motherfuckers right now. This is amazing.
If any of these, items on the generic activist menu are even effective in your society. I mean, to be honest, it's questionable to what extent these tactics are actually effective in any society. But even if they are effective in some societies, in some cases, regarding some issues, it does not mean that they are universally applicable and that they will necessarily work in your society. In this case, for this issue, you can't just make these kinds of assumptions. That's irresponsible. I mean, I had someone ask me on Twitter the other day, if most protest movements in the global south are infiltrated by Western intelligence for the purpose of destabilization, so then if that's the case, what can people in those countries do when they oppose the government on this or that policy? The question is, should they just abandon the whole idea of protest? Okay, well, first of all, you should definitely abandon the idea of protest if you have just jumped to that idea without any deliberation. You should never decide on your strategy. You should never decide on your tactics without careful analysis first. But yes, when you see a protest movement bursting out on the streets in the global south without there being any strategic planning beforehand, it's almost already a given that this has been infiltrated, that it's an infiltrated movement, and that it will be dealt with by the authorities as such, meaning it will be severely cracked down upon, because the authorities will assume that you're nothing but Western provocateurs trying to stir up unrest. Look, the Western model of street protests and so on, it's highly dubious the extent to which these are even effective in the West, much less in global south countries, much less in Muslim countries. I mean, you can make the argument that these types of protests in America or, Europe or what have you, elsewhere in the West, that these types of protests are encouraged because they just let the people burn off steam. And they make them feel like they're doing something consequential.
God damn. Bruh, listen. Like, yo. Man, listen. Like, let's keep this 100% honest here, right? Black Lives Matter didn't save any black lives. Listen, no protest, no fucking movement has ever made any fucking sense. Right? Has never done shit. Ever. Right? Let's keep it honest. Let's be honest about what we're talking about here. My man's is just bombing us with the truth.
Precisely to prevent them from actually doing something consequential. So no, you should never just jump straight into organized mayhem of street protests. That's a big mistake. You have to look at the power structure and the power dynamics of your society, your specific society, and locate and identify potential avenues for redress, because they may exist already. You just have to learn what they are. Like I've said many, many times, you have to identify the ahl al-hal wal-aqd of your society, the people of influence, the people of power, the movers and shakers, the decision makers, and then you have to see how they can potentially be influenced, how you can potentially influence the influencers, or again, you can try to become from among the influencers, from among that segment of the society, that segment of the people who have influence. So I'm not a fan of spontaneous, spur of the moment outburst style activism. Now that doesn't mean be acquiescent. It doesn't mean be compliant. It doesn't mean never rock the boat and so on. That's not what I'm saying. I have no problem whatsoever with confrontation when it is called for. But if confrontation is called for, then it is even more important to be strategic and to be methodical and to objectively assess the real existing power dynamics at play. And again, I'm not anti-street protests per se, but understand what it really does and what it really does not accomplish. You understand? Have an accurate assessment of what role it plays in a movement. The same goes for boycotts and so on. Any sort of mass activism. You have to understand accurately what you're doing and don't have an unrealistic expectation of what you're doing, or an expectation of what you're going to achieve, what your action will achieve. Like, for example, the Montgomery bus boycott back in the 1950s for the racial integration of city buses in Montgomery, Alabama. African Americans stayed off of the buses for over a year to protest or to press for integration. This is the famous case with Rosa Parks and how Martin Luther King became a national figure in the civil rights movement. It was the Montgomery bus boycott. But the fact of the matter is that the integration of the city buses in Montgomery, Alabama was ultimately determined through the Supreme Court case, in a case that was brought by the NAACP and argued by Thurgood Marshall. Thurgood Marshall famously said that he saw no reason why all those people in Montgomery had to walk for all those months, because the outcome was ultimately by means of the legal case, not the boycott. I mean, this isn't entirely true, because the boycott did add pressure to the Supreme Court. It did create an environment of pressure. It galvanized opinion in support of integration and so on. It had a role.
And let me keep this 100% honest here, right? Like, that was a stupid policy, just as a whole, right? Like, I understand the mentality. Like, I can make a solid economic argument for like segregation, right? Because of greenhouses, you know what I'm saying? Fucking like black people's or fucking whoever's immigrant fucking community, right? From outside pressure, right? And from outside money. Like your mom and pop restaurants don't have to compete with McDonald's, who's operating at scale. Right. I can make a fucking solid economic argument for that, right? As it being a positive thing for the people who living inside of these communities. But like literally like forcing people to sit on certain parts of the bus is fucking dumb. That's just literally fucking retarded. It doesn't make any goddamn sense. That's just, it's a stupid fucking policy as a whole. You know what I mean? Like, like real shit, like that is a dumb fucking policy. Like, it's stupid as fuck. You know what I mean? Let's keep that all the way 100. You know what I mean?
Role, but it did not cause the outcome. This is generally going to be the case with protests and marches and rallies and so on. They establish a sort of mood of the society. They establish the mood of the market. And that can influence decision making. But they don't actually cause the results. They have a degree of influence, but they're not necessarily...
let's also keep this 100 with these boycott things, right? With all the companies, right, standing here living on like 1% margin on like most things, right? A solid ass boycott of something will destroy it. You know what I mean? Right? It'll break that company. You know what I mean? So let's not, pretend that, like that shit's not going to have any goddamn effect. You know what I'm saying?
Decisive. And again, they have to be undertaken only after there's a full evaluation, a strategic evaluation of their potential impact. You see, Activism isn't really about big dramatic action. It's methodical, it's tedious, it's boring, and it's tiring. You know, it's like how people watch police shows, TV, police dramas, and in the movies and so on. They think that the police are always in shootouts, chasing down criminals on the street and whatnot, high-speed chases. But in actuality, for real police officers, at least half of their time is spent doing paperwork. Cops are nothing but bureaucrats with guns. It's the same with activists, real activists. The greatest proportion of their time is spent in mundane tasks. Filing papers, getting signatures, holding meetings, making appointments, you know, pushing an initiative inch by inch, day after day. And sporadically, there may be a moment of excitement or drama when they organize an event, you know, or a rally or something like this. But most of the time, they're just doing drudgery. I mean, I've said it before, if you're gonna become involved in political protest or political opposition or what have you, okay, that means that you are now involving yourself in politics. That means that you have to understand politics. You have to understand the politics of your society, the politics of your community, and so on. Meaning, you have to understand the relationships between people. That's what politics is. The relationships between the people of influence, the relationship between different interests, et cetera, and you have to figure out how to navigate all of that, how to manipulate all of that, how to make compromises, how to make deals, and you have to follow protocols and so on.
As I said, building relationships, building rapport, you know what I mean, working with motherfuckers, standing there just gathering signatures. You know, the vast majority of activism is literally like just, it's day by day by day by day, just slow motion. You know what I mean? Spending, you know, 5, 6, 10, 12, 15 hours a week. It's a part-time job or, you know what I mean, maybe a full-time job, depending on how much time you have. And it's literally just like slow rolling, you know what I mean, watching yourself, you know what I mean, like fucking get lost in the cause, you know, and just being, you know what I mean, like shit on by other people around you and like not having people understand, right? And like all these fucking things, like legit, right? So in the end of the day, it's literally, you know what I mean, like you have to, you know what I mean, stand here and, you know what I mean, like be willing to like tolerate just the monotony. It's like anything else in life, you know what I mean? Like, it's like being married, right? Like everybody thinks like, you know, when you get married, like, oh man, listen, you're all excited and you have like whatever, you know what I mean? Like it's not, bro. Like it's only just being able to sit there around and watch TV with a motherfucker and like not do shit a lot of the times because like that's what life is. Life is fucking boring, you know, and when you're working for a cause, it's the same thing. It's fucking boring. You know, like that's what activism is. Like a lot of it is literally just like being willing to endure and out-endure other motherfuckers. You know what I mean? And it's a slow build, right? Like it's how I built this channel, right? Like legit, like, you know, I know like right now we got like fucking 5 people watching. It used to be like 100, right? But like, it's literally like I was on Discord and arguing and arguing and arguing and, you know what I mean, making these fucking cases and dealing with people and fucking like day by day, turning people around and winning motherfucking, you know what I mean, like shit where it's not winning arguments, but like winning hearts and minds and getting people to understand things and learning how to make the arguments properly and learning how to talk to people and, you know what I mean, learning how to do shit until like, you know, my ideas became much more mainstream. Right, to where like now, like, you know, I have memes all over the world, like a GDP number go up meme. That's my fucking meme, right? Like all this shit, it's literally just day by day by day by day, making these arguments, fucking, you know what I mean, like shit posting and fucking, you know, just squabbling and scraping, right? It's day by day by day by day. And as you start winning more hearts and minds, more people, you know what I mean, like start respecting your shit and you start making incremental change, right? But it's incremental. It's not all at once. You know what I'm saying?
So if you're not willing to do all of that, quite frankly, your activism or your reflex to become an activist is very shallow. And it's probably emotional. And you're probably just looking for something to do. Which is why most protesters, let's be honest, most protesters come from the bourgeois, the middle class, and so on. People with disposable time income and general privilege, and generally lead boring, uneventful lives. You know, some people go to raves and others go to protests. It's a recreational activity, which is also why It's largely a Western phenomenon. And while you will mostly see that the people in the global South who participate in these kinds of things also tend to be Westernized people. But I'll say it again, not everyone needs to be an activist. Not everyone needs to be political. Not everyone needs to validate or justify their existence by participating in a social cause or by taking a stand or what have you. It's literally not for everyone. You know, we all know the hadith, Rasulullah telling us that you're supposed to change evil by your hand if you can, or by speaking against it if you can, or at least hating it in your heart if you can't do either of those. So if you're in the last category, again, what you have to try to do now is to try to build your capacity. And that can mean also just building a workable strategy through which you can amplify your capacity. So that then you're in a position where speaking against an evil can have an impact because you built your capacity. And then you can build more to where you actually have the capacity to change it by means of effective action. But if you can't do either of those things, building your capacity and so on, then you should probably just accept that you're not cut out for this kind of thing, and that's fine. And just settle upon providing moral support for those who are cut out for this kind of thing. But no, caring is not enough to qualify you for political activism and opposition and so forth. And being ready to die for a cause is not nearly as important as being ready to live for a cause.
Fucking based. Fucking based. All right. So, let's turn to the fucking tornadoes. Okay, so this is the tornadoes in, Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Kansas, Mississippi, and Tennessee. 34 dead across U.S. as fierce storms moved towards the East Coast. The storm system left buildings and ruins, wrecked power supply, and intensified more than 100 wildfires. The storms left hundreds of thousands of customers without power, injured 29 people in Arkansas, caused fatalities linked to wildfires. Nearly 9 million people are under tornado watches, including Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, and 82.8 million are covered by wind advisories, particularly in the middle of the country. Severe weather threats are moving eastward overnight, with Georgia bracing for heavy rainfall, flash floods, damaging wind gusts, and quickly developing tornadoes. Texas fire 40% contained, says Forest Service. A crabapple fire in Gillespie County in central Texas, covering an estimated 8,640 acres, is now 40% contained. High winds blowing through the southern U.S. this weekend have caused thousands of acres of wildfires in the state. The crabapple fire is the second largest in Texas, at the Windmill Fire in Robert County, which covers 23,000 acres and is 65% contained. The Weather Service said earlier, red flag warning which signal critical fire weather conditions are currently in place over large parts of Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Colorado, Nebraska, and Wyoming, and South Dakota. All right, so lots of stuff going on this weekend with weather. So I saw this earlier, right? No thanks. I don't care about your bullshit. DOGE sackings at NOAA sparked new warning over tornado responses, 37 killed in twisters. Many fear shakeups at NOAA could have impact on the department's ability to respond to tornadoes after twisters ravaged Midwest on Friday night, leaving 37 dead. After a series of powerful tornadoes swept through the Midwest on Friday night and Saturday morning, killing at least 37, many are voicing new concerns about DOGE cuts to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which issues warnings about dangerous storms. NOAA, which contains the National Weather Service, recently has faced mass layoffs amounting to about 10% of its workforce, as DOGE looks for areas of the federal government to make cuts, hoping to slash the size of government and reduce spending. This accounts for about 1,029 employees of the currently 10,290 that work for the agency. 3 former NOAA officials told the Associated Press. Many who were fired included probationary staff, some of whom do critical local forecasts for the National Weather Service across the country. NOAA is responsible for not only publishing daily weather forecasts, but also for monitoring and warning the nation about hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, tsunamis, and space weather that could impact the electrical grid in some areas. It also manages the country's fisheries, runs its marine sanctuaries, provides navigation information to ships, as well as it names implies, monitors changes in the climate and the ocean. One of the U.S. most crucial government agencies, and it keeps hundreds of millions of Americans safe every day with its forecasts, extreme weather warnings. Some facets of the organization help areas battered by extreme weather respond to disasters, including tornadoes and larger scale events like oil spills. But on Friday night and Saturday, tornadoes ravaged the areas of Mississippi Valley, deep in the south, and other extreme weather rattled other parts of the country, killing at least 37 people total, as countless homes were utterly destroyed. Some were killed in their homes. They slept with tornadoes ripping through properties, completely uprooting them as debris was sent flying for miles across Missouri, Arkansas, and other parts of the Midwest and South. The Great Plains wind triggered dust storms that ultimately fanned over 100 wildfires. Harrowing videos posted on social media show the fires ripping through entire communities, utterly decimating them. Over 100 million people were under alert for the severe weather, with a forecast predicting winds of up to 80 miles an hour from Canada to Texas, with blizzards expected in the north as wildfire risk continued threaten the warmer, drier areas of the south. Car accidents were also a significant cause of death from the storms, and 3 killed on Friday on the Amarillo, Texas, which is located in the Panhandle. One pileup contained an estimated 38 cars. It's the worst I've ever seen, Barley said, with calling the near-zero visibility a nightmare. We couldn't tell that they were all together until the dust kind of settled. Cave City, Arkansas was placed under a state of emergency until further notice. Mayor Jonas Arneson said on social media early Saturday after 5 people were injured there. The entire community was ripped apart by tornadoes. Electricity infrastructure has been decimated and remain off for an unknown period of time. He said evacuations orders were widespread across several states. Social media fears about DOGE cuts, He's based on outlets that wrote, tonight is an example why we need the National Weather Service and all of its meteorologists. They are out there saving lives during tornado outbreaks, and they're doing a less commendable job. Listen, I'm going to keep it a buck. Here's what I think, okay? I think a lot of this probably could be automated, right, in the end of the day. And because, computer models can recognize weather that could possibly cause, and that's literally what you're doing. You're like, this weather could cause tornadoes, right? That's why, you get a large area and you go, listen, this is a tornado warning or a tornado, alert or whatever it is, right? These things happen because, there are recognizable patterns to them. So, there is absolutely no reason why it is that you have to have a human doing this, okay? Now, granted, this would be an issue, right? If, you had this, whatchamacallit, if you had this, and it started, giving off false things, right? Now, people would stop paying attention to what's going on, right? With, the tornadoes and shit. That 100% would be an issue. But again, this is probably pretty easy to run through a computer model and get done. I think a lot of the government could probably be replaced by an AI, right? That's kind of where we're going. You know what I'm saying? I think that shit needs to be talked about way more often. You know what I'm saying? This is what the message should be. Listen, a lot of this should be fucking automated. It shouldn't be done, with human beings. Right, because literally it's just a jobs program for college graduates, and then people with meteorology degrees, right, would probably be out of work, but again, we don't need meteorologists as much as we used to, right? It's just we don't need fucking coal miners. Well, we still need coal miners. We don't need as many as we used to. These type of things, right? So that's kind of my mental on it. I understand that this transition is fucking terrible because we're going from a bureaucracy to, I don't want to say a technocracy, but more we're going from a bureaucracy to a government that actually operates properly. You know what I mean? And is way more lean and trim. Because that's what should happen, right? In the end of the day. Because the number one employer in the country is the government. That shouldn't be a thing. To be honest. All right, listen, I got another video from Middle Nation that I kind of wanted to go over. And then I think we might do a video from Eric Weinstein that I think was pretty fucking cool here recently. So let's check this one out because I think, again, this shit's super fucking based.
There was a video of a, I don't want to say, it was a confrontation essentially of two Singaporeans who were at a routine Meet the People session at a neighborhood. Okay,
What's the Meet the People session?
So that's where the MP, the Member of Parliament that represents that particular constituency, which is within the boundary of, it has a boundary, right? So residents of that boundary will have a scheduled weekly or monthly I'm not sure what's the situation now, a session with the member of parliament that represents them. Residents can raise their concerns, raise their issues for either a solution or something. They get to meet their representative, okay, their parliamentary representative for a solution. Okay, so it's always busy.
Right.
Okay.
Of course.
Yeah. So this is a Meet the People session. It took a tense turn when two non-residents, they are both Singaporeans, but they're not residents of that location, right? So they engaged in they began engaging the minister in what was circulating online is a heated exchange between the two women and the minister.
Madam, I say MPS is for residents to come and discuss with us their issues. I have the discretion to see other people.
Okay.
I have the discretion.
Right,
But the general rule is you go and see your own MP. Otherwise, everyone will go and see the Prime Minister. Technically, he is responsible for everything.
Okay.
It doesn't work like that.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that I cannot waive the rule and see. So I would suggest you be careful. I would suggest you be careful before you accuse people of lying.
The issue that they wanted to raise with him was the one on the protection from online falsehoods and manipulation act, which is shortened as POFMA, POFMA, Protection from Online Falsehoods and Manipulation Act.
If you say something online, you have to prove, if you're given one of these notices or whatever, you have to prove that what you said is true and it's not misinformation.
Yeah, pretty much.
And if you can prove that, then it's removed.
Yes. So the publisher will have to will have to publish a correction notice, providing access to correct facts. So there are protocols. Okay. So if it has been proven that these are the facts and you cannot counter it, then there are some steps that you need to take to show that okay, there's this is what you're saying, but there's all of these counterclaims. You need to present them together. Okay. So this is pretty much it. So they wanted to raise that with him. And he said, for everyone who's seen this video, so this is repeating information, but to make a long story short, he tried to engage with them in a very civil manner to tell them that he's there for pressing issues of his residents and that they should take the matter at a time that is more appropriate and suitable and that it can be arranged until further notice. Okay? But it just escalated to a kind of an aggressive, confrontational tone because as he walked away from them, after meeting them face to face to interact and talk to them about their concerns, right? He walks away and then one of them shouts, "Coward! Coward! Coward! Coward!"
If the residents here have come here, who shouted coward? Who else? There was somebody else.
Yo, look at this fat bitch for no fucking reason, bro. Like, real shit. Now, you are well fed. Why are you fucking complaining? Like, you fucking swear to God.
The residents have come here for their issues. You have come here to disrupt the Meet the People session.
I saw the video actually. And even though that particular politician, I don't care for him at all, he is definitely in the right in how he conducted himself. And the ladies who were, I don't know, protesting or confronting him or what have you, they're definitely in the wrong, in my opinion. Their approach was childish. And his approach was very civil, was very respectful, was very controlled, and was what you would expect. In other words, I'm not going to address this now. He has a very plausible excuse for not addressing it now, meaning, or that being, I'm here in the capacity as an MP for this constituency, and they're meeting with me to address their issues, the issues of my constituency, and I'm not here for this. I'm not here in the capacity as the Minister of Home Affairs or the Minister of Law. I'm here in the capacity as an MP for these people. So you're already going to him at a time when he has a ready-made excuse for not talking to you about your issue. And that's how he dealt with it. He was repeatedly saying, you know, we can arrange a time to discuss this, and someone will discuss it with you. He never said that he would discuss it with them, but he said that your issues will be addressed if you go through the proper channels, and you know, contact my office or what have you, get the email, send me an email, and we'll work up a meeting and so on. You should have actually been satisfied with that response, because that's the response that you would have predictably gotten. I should say that's the response that you would predictably have gotten in Singapore. The response that the entire meeting would not have taken place in the United States. This entire exchange would never have taken place in the United States, because there's no such thing as, what's it called?
Meet the people
Meet
session.
the people. There's no such thing as meet the people sessions.
Yeah, you ain't get no fucking time with like your fucking representatives, right? Like, could you imagine like your congressman just like once a week coming out having a conversation with just regular people and addressing their fucking concerns in their like area? That's fucking completely way outside of the idea of like what the fuck would ever happen in any real like any Western democratic state. That would never fucking happen, right? Yo, that's fucking insane that they fucking do that shit.
In the we the people country, the government of the people, by the people, for the people, there's no such thing as a meet the people session. There are orchestrated, choreographed town hall meetings. If the representative chooses to do that, and it's usually only in election time.
Okay, so this is once a week.
Yeah.
You know.
So this is not something that you have in the democratic United States.
Okay.
You don't get to meet your senator, you don't get to meet your congressman unless you've given them $1 million. Unless you're a big campaign funder, then you have maybe access. Otherwise, the general public doesn't really have access to their representatives. So this whole meeting wouldn't have taken place. And if there was any sort of a confrontational meeting like that, you would have been dragged away by security. These women were not dragged away by security. In fact, they had a face-to-face exchange with the man, and he was extremely polite. He was extremely civil. He was extremely disciplined and restrained.
Yep.
In how he talked to them, even when they were misbehaving, even when they were disrespectful, even when they, in my opinion, showed themselves to be completely unserious people. And yes, confrontational, adversarial, confrontational, disrespectful. This really highlights what I've talked about before in terms of if you're like all of the steps that you're supposed to go through. I just did a thing about this. I just talked about this recently.
Yeah.
The prerequisites to activism of sort of self-analysis, self-evaluation, self-awareness about what's really driving you. Because in my opinion, these women, they don't care about POFMA, this online falsehood legislation, regulation. They don't actually care about that. They don't care about addressing that. What they want is to protest. This is what they want. This is actually what you want. You want to be the person flipping off the authorities. You have, because you have a mythology about speaking truth to power.
Right.
And so now I want to be that guy, or I want to be that person. I want to be that figure. I want to be admired as the hero who stands up to power.
Right.
Who speaks truth to power. That's what I want.
Yeah.
It's not about solving any problems. It's not about having a grievance that you want to get resolved. Because if you have a grievance that you want to get resolved, subhanAllah, you have an incredibly accessible government in Singapore. Incredibly accessible. Literally weekly meetings with the representatives. And you're actually speaking face-to-face with the Home Minister, which is almost like talking to the Secretary of State. Which having access to talk to the Secretary of State. Where can you do that? If you really want to resolve your issue, then you will approach it in a realistic way. And it's not that you will just automatically go with the confrontational, adversarial, protest, oppositional approach. You will opt for whatever approach is the most effective approach.
Yeah.
And the most effective approach would be for you to exactly take his advice, make a meeting, set an arrangement.
Yes.
We'll have an email, we'll have a meeting, and we'll discuss it. At the right time, in the right environment, when
Yeah, this shit is super fucking based. Right? Like real shit. when you have a dude who is an activist telling you, like, yo, like, legit, you're fucking retarded. Like, yo, you're fucking retarded. Let's keep it a bean, right? Could you imagine this happening in the U.S.? Right? Could you fucking imagine? Like, legitimately? Like, the shenanigans that would go on? But, like, yo, could you imagine being able to, like, have access weekly to your congressman? Right? Like, if Dan Crenshaw had to come home every week and meet with people. Yo, listen, old Patchy McGee would, you know what I mean, just run away scared, right? Like he did, like after he had like 3 of those fucking like open freedom of speech things, and then like he just got ran off the planet by those fucking groypers and shit, right? Like, yo, man, listen, bro, 100%, this dude's fucking 1,000,000% right.
I'm in my capacity as the Home Minister or as the Minister of Law,
Right.
and we can discuss it.
Right.
But not here, not now. This is not the time, this is not the place. And this isn't the way. But you don't care if that's the way or not, because what you want to do.
Yo, what up, Johnny boy? Man, listen, you gotta listen to this whole thing, right? Like, I've been rocking for about an hour or so now, something like that, maybe a little bit more. You know what I mean? I'm like, listen, I'm gonna end it at this here when I'm done with this, right? Because you know, I had a female just come over, so like, listen, we're gonna break this down. You know what I mean? Have a conversation about this, because listen, I watched this video. It's like a 3rd time I'm watching it, 4th time I'm watching this fucking video, because it's just so goddamn based, right? Listen, we're gonna keep going.
It was what you just did, which is to flip off the authorities. That's what you wanted to do. And I think you should ask yourself why.
Yeah.
I really think that you need to analyze yourself psychologically. What's your psyche? Because you actually, in my opinion, you have a personal issue. You have a personal problem internally to you that you need to identify why you are so discontent. Actually, what's the real reason for your discontent? Because it's not what you're saying. It's not POFMA, it's not the online falsehood, and we think that there's censorship or there's whatever these restrictions. That's not really what's going on here. Because if that's what was really going on here, then you would address it in a realistic manner. You would access the
tools and
the tools and the
mechanisms.
channels that are available for addressing it. But you're not doing that. You're choosing to do it in a way that, I'm sorry, mimics protesters in the U.S. You're doing it in a way that mimics oppositional politics in the U.S. But you have to understand that there's a reason why it's like that in the U.S. because of what I just said, which is that you can never meet with your politician. You never can meet with your representative. The government in the we the people, of the people, by the people, for the people, that government is completely unresponsive to the population. There are no channels for getting your grievances addressed by your politicians, by your so-called representatives. There are no channels for that, unless you are a major funder. But you, alhamdulillah, you should say alhamdulillah, because they were Muslims. You should say alhamdulillah, you live in a society where the government is actually quite responsive and quite accessible, that you can literally talk to them every week, your representative. And they're willing to...
I still find that fucking crazy. Yeah, that's fucking nuts.
Make appointments with you to discuss whatever issues you have, even when you're not their constituent. You should be happy about that, but for some reason you're not. For some reason you don't appreciate that. And this is why I'm saying you actually have some psychological issue, a personal issue that should be addressed. I don't want peace. I want problems always. This is what you are. This is really what you are. You want problems. You don't want problems solved. You want problems. Because I don't know, you think it makes you look brave or something. Like I said, this is a performance. There's something else driving you. And it has nothing to do with the cause that you're claiming. It has nothing to do with that. Like you said, they just want to vent. Okay, but vent about what? Actually. You know, like I said, alhamdulillah, in your society, you're basically fine.
So based, bro. Like, so fucking based. Like, real shit.
In Singapore, mashallah, compared to other places, you're fine. But you seem to be angry that you're fine. You seem to want to live in a society where the government is not responsive, where the government is not accessible, where you're really under some kind of a tyranny, so that you can have some justification for being the big, brave person who stands up against the authorities.
Yo, once a week in Singapore, the fucking local, your fucking representative, right? Your representative to the federal fucking government comes out and talks to the people. Once a week. Once a week, bro, you can just literally meet with your fucking people. You can just like go, hey, listen, bro, we're having problems over here with this thing. Like, could you imagine? Like, you could be, if it was me, I'd be super cordial about it too. Like, hey, listen, we're having some problems over here with this here, right? And like, oh man, listen, are you? Like, yeah, man, can you help us out with this? You know what I mean? Like, that's all you'd have to do. Like, could you imagine having that much access?
Yeah.
But no one needs you to stand up against the authorities.
Yeah.
The authority is standing right there in front of you, talking to you in a civil manner, asking you what your concerns are.
Yeah.
And okay, I can't discuss this now, but we can set a time to talk about it. But you're not interested in doing that.
Yeah.
Means again, you're not interested in solving problems, you're interested in making problems.
Yeah, this is why I felt that what you said, about shouting at the rain in order to stay dry. I'm sorry, I can't get it because it's your line. So it really put the picture for me clearly.
Activism isn't what you think it is. For most people. For most people, they think activism is laying in front of a car, on the highway, or I don't know, splashing paint on a painting in the museum, or all of.
Yo, bro, this bitch is not being fair in my bed right now. She's literally just sitting here with a fucking ass in the air. Like, it is not. Listen, she is not fucking helping, bro. Listen, yo, look, I'm just not helping.
These very performative actions. Activism is people who okay, they say grassroots. When you look at the grass, you don't see the roots. That's what grassroots means. It's people who are working really down in the dirt, and you never even see them. You don't hear about them, you don't see them, you don't know what they're doing. Because they're just working. They're not in front of cameras. They're just working. Like when I used to work at Emergency Family Assistance, an organization in America that was helping indigent families. All of the people who worked there were some of them who were paid, and many of them, including myself, who were volunteers. That's activism. You're literally helping people with no attention, no coverage, no media, no nothing, but you're actually in the grassroots helping people. And the same with when I worked for Open Door, the anti-gang violence organization. These are people who are just working. They deal with the police, they deal with churches, they deal with government, they deal with schools, education, and obviously with families, with the individuals. They go to events where there might be violence and so on. You never hear about what they're doing, but they're working. That's what grassroots is. And that's what real activism is, that you're actually active, doing work to help people and to resolve the problems of people and the problems of society. It's not turn on the camera and flip off the authorities. This is not activism. Yeah. Because this is not going to get you any solution to any problem. It's only going to cause problems. Yeah. So a society has to, a society has to, at a certain point, decide how much of this kind of pointless disruption we can handle, we can manage.
Fucking based, son. Fucking based.
And knowing that it's actually not coming from a genuine or a sincere place where you care about social ills, because again, if you cared about social ills, you would be involved in the actual work of resolving those. So it's actually coming from a psychological problem, in my opinion, a personal psychological problem that you have, that you are now externalizing in the form of activism, so-called activism.
You're not wrong. You know what I mean? Like, if you actually gave a shit about, you know what I mean, like the real problems of your community, like 100%, you'd be working within your community to fix these type of problems, right? You wouldn't be standing here like just fucking running up to the police, you know what I mean, and flipping them off and fucking trying to defund shit. Like, you'd be working with the cops to go like, hey, listen, you know what I mean? Like, when you run into like these family problems, you know what I mean? Like, yo, maybe you can like let us know so we can go help out, you know what I mean? Or you know what I mean? Like, yo, you would stand here and like try to act before the fucking police got the fuck involved. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, why was George Floyd in the position he was in? Like, yo, when fucking all that shit happened, yo, because like, yo, he had all this child support shit and then COVID fucking stole his job, right? And they shut down his shit. And then all of a sudden, like, yo, he's just back on the bottom again and then fucking like they're hounding him for fucking money. Like, welcome back. Like, again, these are fucking problems that need to be addressed. Nobody's addressing the problems. They're just addressing the fucking results of such things. You know what I mean? Like, yo, this is where activism comes in. This is where guys like me, I'm working towards it. I'm working towards it. I'm working towards it. I'm working towards it. I'm like, bro, listen, like, we are all victims of this fucking system. Let's have this conversation. Let's change our paradigms about shit. Let's have these conversations in a real way. You know what I mean? Let's talk about this stuff. Let's fucking bring it up. Let's address it. Let's get into it. Like, yo, I had a video when I covered the George Floyd thing. I interviewed his best friend. The second sentence out of his fucking mouth, right? The first one was, we came up here, we got jobs, we were paying our child support. The fucking second sentence out of the fucking dude's mouth was, we was paying our child support. Again, address the fucking issue before it happens. This is activism. This is true activism. Instead of looking at it and going like, oh man, listen, fucking the cops are shooting motherfuckers. Why? Why did this happen? Let's address the root. Let's not address the goddamn fucking whole thing. Let's not address the result, right? That's like, you know what I mean, standing here going like, oh man, listen, this guy, you know what I mean, fucking like won the race. You know what I mean? Like, oh man, listen, you know, fucking like, we need to fucking just crown him victor. Like, yo, did he win the race honestly? Like, have these conversations.
Activism.
Yeah.
But all that is, it's not even activism, it's just disruption.
Yeah.
Disruption.
Yes, that's what it is. Because all you got your brief moment of fame, and all the memes are going around. Like,
Now listen, I love y'all motherfuckers, bro. All right, you understand this? Like, I do this for y'all, okay? Number one. Number two, you know what I'm saying? Like, his bro is gonna motherfucking, you know what I mean, she's gonna bathe me when I'm done with this. Okay, because like I was already inside her before this. You know what I mean? Like, listen, I got all this worked out, dog. Don't you worry about what I'm doing, okay?
I'm sorry, it's very superficial, like the small guy going against the big guy type of memes, you know, which is what, that's your objective. You've met your objective now. You got your 5 minutes of fame, the glorification that you were seeking. But as for actual work that needs to be done, that's on the ground, that's minuscule, that takes time, that yields in results, these are things that apparently uninteresting and not cinematic.
You want to go straight to confrontation.
Yeah.
And there are some situations and circumstances and conditions and some societies and some power dynamics in some societies that require that. That's not the case with you. And you should be grateful that that's not the case with you. And alhamdulillah, in many places that's not the case.
Yeah.
You will almost actually only find that to be the case in the democratic West. That's the case in the democratic West, where you can never get anything done. There are no actual channels of accountability. There are no actual channels of access to your politicians. There's no accountability and so forth. So it kind of makes sense that in the West, they go directly to confrontation. Because everything else is futile. And even the confrontation is usually futile. Because they've locked you out completely of the system. But this isn't the case in Singapore. It's not the case in many countries. But you jump right to that, and the reason that you jump right to that is like I said, because that's just what you want. You just want disruption, you just want confrontation, you just want to make problems. And I'm saying, you need to identify what's your problem, that you're like that.
If you don't understand that there's a civil way to go about doing things, as opposed to just direct confrontation, then you're not interested in a solution.
Right, that's what I'm saying. You're interested in confrontation for its own sake.
Yeah.
Because you have a mythology in your mind. Just like what you were saying with the memes going around about the little guy against the big guy. This is what you want to be. You want to be that heroic figure who just is engaged in a futile confrontation with power, even if you get wiped out, but I'm a hero. Okay? What I'm saying is, I don't care if it's a civil way or if it's a confrontational way. The only thing that matters is if it's an effective way. That's the only thing that matters. And if you're not looking at what's the effective way, then
Based. Fucking based.
I'm not interested. And you're not serious. If you're, for example, if you're insisting on a civil approach, when a civil approach is not effective, then you're not serious. If you're focusing on or jumping straight to a confrontational way, and a confrontational way is not effective, then you're not serious.
Yeah.
You have to make an actual evaluation and an analysis of what are the options available strategically for you to get a grievance addressed, and pursue that, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But none of you do that.
Yeah, that's when you demonstrate that you have personal conviction, and so you pursue it no matter what, you know, and that requires resolve, and you know, again, resolute action. You know.
It's like the very, very famous statement of Malcolm X: by any means necessary. Everyone jumps to think that must mean violence.
Yeah.
By any means necessary also means making an appointment with the Home Minister and discussing it with him in a civil manner. Because that's the way that works. Don't just jump to the most drastic, the most confrontational, adversarial approach. In my opinion, a futile approach is an immoral approach. Because you're as indifferent to the problem that you're claiming to try to solve. You're as indifferent to a solution to that problem as the people who are creating the problem. You're the same as someone who's completely apathetic to the problem, in my opinion. If you're not going to be serious enough to try to take an effective approach, even if it's not as dramatic or as self-aggrandizing as you would like it to be. It's a very colonized mindset that you just want to be like
the West.
That you just want to use the Western template of what their usual menu of complaints are. Their usual menu of like social priorities about liberalism and free speech and freedom of assembly and so on. And then you want to also mimic their way of approaching those issues, which is to go out in the street or be confrontational or what have you. And you're just trying to apply a Western, specifically an American template, to your country. And it is a misfit. It doesn't fit.
Yeah. You just want to confront authorities and you want to assume a front of, again, speaking quote,
truth to power.
Truth to power. It's all a kind of, again, it's just theater. It's recreational. It's very hard for me to respect any of this.
No, because like in that video, when they were confronting him, and he was again very civil, and
right, yo, listen, all right, I'm Tom Peace, okay? Like, what you have to understand is that, like, I do what I want, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, like, if a female wants to come and hang out, I'm like, yo, it is what it is, you know what I mean? Like, I put broads in the deep water, just how that operates. You know what I mean? Like, I take a broad in the woods and she'll be over here sweating her ass off, not having any idea what the fuck she's doing, wanting to quit midway through, right? You know what I mean? But she's like, oh, but I want to have fun with you, right? Listen, that's how this operates, okay? Like, yo, I know what I'm doing, right? It's better to make yourself unavailable sometimes, you know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? To make sure the motherfuckers really want you around.
Activists' approach, a serious activist's approach would have been, thank you very much, sir. Thank you for the contact information, and I will send you a message, and we'll make an appointment. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. That's it.
Yeah.
But you think that's, I don't know, bootlicking. You think that's weak. You think that's subservient and passive and whatever.
Yo, listen, you wanna read some Machiavellian shit? Check out my Substack, bro. Check out 2035. It's free. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, I don't know if you've been reading that, Johnny, but like, you should check it out because 100%, like 90% of it is fucking just straight Machiavellian shit. You know what I mean? Mixed with like a great story and some awesome premises about like how you deal with, for like looking at it from a small scale and a personalized view of how you deal with like outside problems as like a fucking leader of like a community and shit. You know what I mean? Like is being, you know what I mean, a fucking good guy, you know what I mean, really the best way to go. You know what I mean? Like fucking check that shit out.
That's effective.
Yeah.
This is effective.
And particularly if you are being recorded and you have it on record that the minister is going to address it. So the best way to go along with it is to have...
Yo, what up, Mr. fucking blue collar Canuck?
Have a civil agreement, and then you can follow up on him because it's on record.
Precisely.
But
Precisely.
no, that was because again, you are so fogged in your mind with this,
And anyone who is actually concerned about this POFMA thing, or Palestine, or whatever the case may be, because this group is also interested they want sanctions against Israel or whatever. Anyone who's serious, because these people are not serious, anyone who is serious about those things Because they're not like, I wouldn't be dismissive of those issues. If you have concerns, you have concerns. And if you're someone who is serious about those concerns, you need to disassociate yourself from these types of people, in my opinion. Because they are undermining your...
Yo, he said, you need to tell these motherfuckers to get fucked. Like, he's like, nah, man, listen, y'all ain't part of this. Like, stay the fuck away from that meeting. Like, you need to show up and shut them down. Like, 100%, he's not wrong. He is not wrong at all. Like, you got to be careful about who your circle is and who the people are representing you.
Cause they're undermining your concerns, and they're sabotaging any effort that you might make to get those issues resolved. Either you need to disassociate yourself from them, or you need to take them aside and talk to them about how strategy works, how actual engagement with power works, because, like I said, in my opinion, they don't have good intentions from the beginning. I won't say good intentions. They don't have pure intentions. Their intentions are muddled. I think that their intentions are based on
Yo, what up, Play Trucker Zach? Welcome, man, welcome.
Personal psychological issues of discontent that has to do with something personal in their life. Because this is not the approach of serious people to a social issue or a concern about some kind of unfair legislation or whatever. You're trying to prove something about yourself, to yourself or to others or what have you. You're not, this is what I'm saying, it's not a...
Y'all listen, Turfling and Monkey used to talk about this all the time. He said, basically, you know what I mean, like when you realize something's wrong, you know what I mean, and like you have like your paradigm broken, you go through like a stages of grief where like, you know, you go through denial, you go through anger, you go through fucking bargaining, you go through, you know what I'm saying, depression, then you go through acceptance, right? You go through all these fucking things. But like what you have to do is you can't take people who haven't made it to that point of acceptance, right, of these type of things in your fucking, like you have to only let people who have made it to acceptance in your fucking, like, as your representatives. Like, and you're trying to, and as you catch people who are still angry, you want to take them and move them through that fucking process. Because there's a lot of people who just get stuck being fucking angry, or they'll get stuck being fucking depressed. You know, like, you have to give them hope, and you have to like show them like, hey, listen, you know, things can change. You know what I mean? And things like, this is just what it is. And it's not that bad, right? Like, this is, you have to be willing to have people around who are a net positive, not just for you, but like for your movement as a whole. You know what I mean? And those people, like, you gotta like weed them the fuck out, like get the wheat from the chaff. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's highly important that you as like the beginning or the leader, like somebody who is representing these type of causes, whatever it is, like be that fucking person. Take responsibility for it. And when you catch people out there doing banana shit, you confront them in front of everybody. Like, hey, listen, you know what I mean? Like, yo, this is not helping us. You know what I mean? You're just going to make them fight us harder. Like, you're becoming the monster. You're giving them a monster to fight against. You know what I'm saying? Right? Like, fucking Yarvin talks about this, and people, like, looked at me a certain way when I said, listen, like, you know, fucking stop fighting them. Stop fighting the fucking left. Right? Because when you stop fighting them, they end up fucking eating themselves. Right? Because you have to be able to stand here and go like, yeah, listen, I don't want to be the monster that, like, you know what I mean, they say I am. That's an important fucking thing in the end of the day. That's really where shit's at. Like, you can argue with the left, but you got to argue with them emotionally. Drag them into deep water emotionally. You know what I mean? That's why, like I say, listen, you're part of the white trash, no state. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, admit you're white trash. Like, yeah, I ain't shit. You know what I mean? And then that puts them off guard because now, like, their whole idea of that power dynamic of, like, them being the little guy is fucking gone. Now you're the little guy. And to them, you have the fucking, you know what I mean, the high ground. These are things, you know what I'm saying, that you got to fucking think about when you're fucking being willing to do all this shit.
About the cause. If it's about the cause, then you are subordinate to the cause.
Yes. No matter what.
And I'm willing to even be obsequious to a minister, to an official, or what have you, if it's going to get the job done. If that will get the job done. It's not about your ego.
Yeah.
It's about getting getting an effective solution to a problem that you actually take seriously.
Yeah. I mean, I have no doubt in my mind that for these types, the only functioning democracy is what they see in the West.
Right.
And
right, which is so ironic.
Yeah.
Which is so ironic.
This is an important point to raise.
Yeah, because the reality is that you see people, like I've said many times, you see people protesting in the streets, You see this very confrontational attitude among sort of oppositional type.
I mean, let's keep this a beam too, though, about Singapore, man. Listen, Singapore does not allow like other parties, right? Like, it's a one-party state, right? It's, you know what I mean? Like, it's super, like, democratic in, like, a lot of other ways because it's, like, really socialist. Like, I think something like 85 to 90% of the population lives in public housing, right? But it's an island. Right. So, like, you know, it's basically like an island city. Like, there's no farmland. There's no fucking countryside. There's beaches. Right. But, like, almost everybody lives in, like, a fucking apartment tower. Right. And the government helps you pay for your fucking place because, like, they know the price of it is going to be fucking insane. Right. And that's how they control that shit. But it's a one party state. They will not allow a different party to come in and, like, change things. Right. Because it's a planned fucking economy. Right. But the thing is, again, if you want something addressed where it's like, hey, listen, you know, this will make life better or easier for us, they'll talk about it. It's a different thing. It's a whole different animal of a fucking government. You know what I mean? It's nice. Right. It is. Because I actually think, like, so recently on the right, you know what I mean, as far as like shit's concerned, they said, listen, you know what I mean, you're having the ability to have like arguments between like different parts of the right now. And that's because Trump is like the center, right? Trump, like, as long as everybody's cool with Trump, the rest of us can squabble about how to fucking get shit done. You know what I mean? And that's great. That's an important thing. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what a king gives you. That's super stable type of shit where it's like you don't have to worry about, you know what I mean, like fucking standing here having like motherfuckers vying for fucking power and trying to climb to the top. They're just having these real conversations and having these arguments and having it out about what needs to be done. You know what I mean? And that's beautiful. Recognize these fucking power dynamics, my brothers and sisters. Recognize them.
And groups and interests in the U.S. Because the government will never listen to you ever.
Please take note.
Because in this great democracy, you have no democracy. In this great government of the people, by the people, and for the people are completely locked out. You don't have, like I said, you don't have weekly meetings with your representative. You will never see your representative at all, except at election time, from a distance. And like I said, maybe they will organize a town hall meeting in which it's entirely orchestrated, it's entirely choreographed, and this politician or that politician will place their own people in the audience to ask pre-arranged questions that I've already memorized the answers to. Maybe you'll get a chance to say something, but if you say something that's out of line, if you say something that's off the script, they will pull you out of that town meeting by your hair.
But the problem is this. They didn't come here to listen, they came here to interrupt.
Private security people came, never identifying themselves as what they were, literally dragged her out of the place. Okay? This is not happening in your country. This happens in democracies.
The Western democracies that you so admire.
Yeah. So there's a reason why people in America act like that. Because they're actually living under a tyranny. They're actually living under an authoritarian democracy. You know? Whereas in Singapore, you can literally just meet the representative, you can meet the home minister, you can meet the minister of law, you can meet your MP, and they are required, in fact, to meet you every week. Imagine that. And Singapore gets called that they're an authoritarian government. That they don't have that they're a dictatorship, that they don't have democracy and what have you. And they're being accused of that by a country that doesn't let you say a word, and your representatives will never meet you unless you're $1 million funder of a campaign. You know, so you are mimicking a society that is not like your society. You're mimicking an approach by people who live in a society that is not like your society, and it's not an approach that is required in your society. And you should be grateful for that. You should appreciate that. And again, you should always make your approach according to what is effective.
In your own environment.
In your own environment.
All right, fellas, listen. You know what I mean? I'm gonna tell you what, fucking, like, I think this was, you know what I'm saying, beautiful. You know what I mean? I'm gonna cut this off right here because I got things to do in case y'all ain't noticed. I'm gonna holla at y'all motherfuckers later. Y'all know the deal. Like, share, and subscribe. Peace be like one. I'm the fuck up out of here. Later. And